I call the meeting number 9 of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration to order. Before we proceed, just a health and safety reminder to everyone. All those members and the other attendees who are participating in person, please make sure that you follow physical distancing. Please physically distance yourself from others by at least 2 meters and to wear a mask unless you are seated and more than 2 meters from anyone else. This is a hybrid meeting. Some members are appearing in person in the parliamentary precinct and the others are appearing remotely. Please, a reminder to all speakers, speak at a pace slow enough for interpretation to keep up, and we will be keeping a list of the raised hands if there is a need. The meeting is being webcast and is available on PAL View. Just in regards to some future business, the committee will meet with the minister and the officials on Wednesday, December 2nd, for a briefing session on the impact of COVID-19 on the department's staffing level. The committee has invited senior officials of IRCC to appear on Monday, December 7th, under the study of the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system. Today, we will be hearing the witnesses as we continue our study on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system. Today, I welcome Mr. Christian, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, University of Calgary. We also have Yannick Bocher, Director, Services for Immigrants, École Liaison pour Arrivants, and also Madame Marie-Laure Conan, Director, Occupational Integration. We also have in this panel from Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic, Madame Eve Go. She's the Clinical Director. So I welcome all the witnesses. Thanks for appearing before the committee today. All the witnesses will be provided 5 minutes for their opening remarks. We will start with Mr. Christian, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, University of Calgary. Floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee for this invitation. I am a law professor at the University of Calgary Faculty of Law. I'm also the president of African Scholars Initiative, ASI Canada, a registered not-for-profit organization that seeks to attract bright future scholars of African descent to pursue graduate education in Canada. As a law professor, intellectual debate in my classroom is exceedingly informed when there are diversity of opinions among my students. However, achieving such diversity becomes problematic when you have an immigration system that almost always approves study permit application for students from countries located predominantly in Europe, and at the same time, almost always refuses study permit applications from students from countries located predominantly in Africa. As president of ASI, the greatest challenge we have faced in attracting bright future scholars of African descent to pursue higher education in Canada has always been dealing with Canadian immigration officers, especially at the visa office in Nairobi, Kenya. Study permit applications are routinely denied by visa officers relying on subsection 2161 of IRPR, a provision similar to section 179B of IRPR. The study permit applications are routinely refused because the visa officers are not satisfied that the applicants will leave Canada at the end of their study. This has resulted in denial of over 80% of study permit applications in visa offices in Africa. The Nairobi visa office is especially infamous for this. In fact, among my immigration lawyer colleagues in Canada, there is a common joke that when you are preparing a study permit application for Nairobi visa office, you prepare the application in anticipation of litigation. This is because the application is most likely going to be refused, resulting in judicial review before the federal court in Canada, with the Minister Council making an offer to settle and have the application sent back to the visa office for a determination. Then the application is refused again, and then you come to the federal court to relitigate. Prospective international students often spend greater percentage of money meant to fund their education to rather pay litigation fees arising from refusal decisions by visa officers. Madam Chair and honorable members, I wish to also make submission relating to family reunification in the context of Canadian children in Canada who are children of foreign nationals outside Canada. For Canadian children whose parents are in countries that require visa to enter Canada, family reunification will be nightmarish. I would like to narrate the sad experience of a 5-year-old Canadian child who, for privacy reasons, I will refer to as Baby G. Baby G is a Canadian citizen who returned to Canada in 2018 with her mom, an international student. Baby G was very close to her father, and this separation resulted in adverse psychological impact on Baby G. The mom invited the biological father to visit Baby G in Canada with the hope that the temporary presence in Canada will help address the psychological problem. The visa application was filed in Nairobi Visa Office in September 2019 and was refused 130 days after. The visa officer was not satisfied that the dad will leave Canada because of his personal assets and financial status, even though the dad has submitted bank statements with a total balance of equivalent of about 66,000 Canadian dollars. In reaching this decision, the visa officer gave zero consideration to the best interest of the Canadian child adversely affected by the decision. Immediately litigation was commenced at the federal court challenging the decision. The minister made an offer to settle on the condition that the litigation is discontinued. The application is sent back to Nairobi for a determination. The applicant trusted the minister and the Crown, discontinued the litigation in April 2020. Till date, the minister has failed to fulfill his undertaking to review this application or to determine the application.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Christian. Your time is up. We will have to move to our next witness. We will have 5 minutes for école liaison pour arrivant, and I think Mr. Boucher will be sharing the time with your colleagues. So, Mr. Boucher, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Merci.
Thank you very much. I'll give you an idea of who ALPA is. So we've been active in immigration for 35 years. Our mission is to offer integration services and franchisation services to immigrants, as well as help with employment and regionalization. On average, 4,000 people, all categories combined, benefit from ALPA services each year. As a frontline immigration and occupational integration service, well, we have come before this parliamentary committee today. We want to talk to you about what we've observed on the ground in the context of the Quebec reality, since you're studying the impact of COVID-19 on immigration. First of all, you have to remember that the situation is quite exceptional. We've never seen this before in recent history. And so we're all going through this as we go and doing what we can to minimize the impacts on individuals. And that's what we're going to talk about in our opening remarks. So we acknowledge the initiative that you're doing, and we want to be able for you to report this to Parliament. Now, there's a structural problem that was present before COVID, but the situation has become exacerbated. The current situation has revealed existing problems. We've seen an increase in the level of anxiety around administrative steps. People are unsure if they, for example, they don't get a confirmation of receipt. They don't know if their request has been received by the authorities. This confirmation of receipt is important for them to access the Quebec health insurance plan. Immigrants need to be reassured in the face of this helplessness. And the issue of time is also a source of stress. For example, sometimes documents can expire, especially when it's a medical exam. And these steps become more and more expensive. For example, I can tell you about Miss Belkacem, who's a social worker in Montreal. Her Quebec selection certificate, known as the CSQ, it's a document that's valid for 24 months. Well, it expired, and so it was sent back for more information. In this case, the whole process could be started again. And if she's waiting for a positive answer, in fact, this creates a lot of stress because the documents can expire in the meantime. For permanent residents whose permanent resident cards have expired, it can be difficult for them to be allowed to travel to Canada. If another card has, for example, for foreign students, the same thing can happen. And they can find themselves in a situation where it's impossible to renew their card or find a new employer. And then on top of all this stress, there's anxiety that's exacerbated by the lockdown situation. There's isolation, there's challenges around family reunification, and it brings with it many family problems. Families are separated for a longer time, and this leads to problems with mental health, physical health, and this situation is worsened when families who are waiting to be reunified include children who are minors and whose only living parent is in Canada. Sometimes there are minors, children who stayed in the country. So for us, this situation becomes even more complicated given COVID. So these longer processing times are making an already difficult situation more difficult. The danger here is that there's a loss of credibility from Canada's part on the international stage. And for temporary resident visas, there have been consequences. But for international students, mainly for people from Africa, from Francophone countries, well, there's the language issue there. And the COVID situation makes things more difficult for people who are trying to learn French. There are language barriers. And I would end. Well, there are also issues with labor. People are being trained by our academic institutions. And we also work with businesses, and we're seeing that they're having a very hard time. A lot of them are recruiting internationally, and they've put a lot of time and energy into recruiting, and they still don't know if they'll have the resources they need.
Your time is up. You'll get an opportunity to talk about that during the round of questioning. We will now move to our third witness, Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic, being represented by Madam Go. She is the clinical director. Madam Go, you can start. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So on behalf of the Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic, I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. The pandemic has dramatically changed the way governments carry out their businesses and has led to some positive outcomes in the context of immigration, including a much faster processing time for certain types of applications, as well as fewer detentions and removals. Yet COVID-19 has also exposed and exacerbated pre-existing inequities in the immigration system, which are felt most harshly by racialized communities members and people with precarious immigration status. Despite numerous emergency measures being put in place by the federal government, many of these issues remain unaddressed. And here are a few examples. Parents and grandparents sponsorship continues to be subject to an arbitrary quota. The M&I requirement continues to deny racialized Canadians, especially women, an opportunity for family reunification due to the racialization of poverty in Canada. The vulnerability of migrant workers has been laid bare by the pandemic, yet governments have been slow to implement measures to protect them from further exploitation and harm. Domestic violence incidents have skyrocketed, particularly among women who are trapped in abusive relationships due to their immigration status, many of whom are denied status under the pilot project specifically created for family violence victims. The government continues to use immigration status as a gateway requirement to access federal benefits and refuses to extend Canada child benefits to children, including those born in Canada, based on their parents' immigration status. There are delays in almost all immigration and refugee programs, with a concern that dependent children will age out and become ineligible to be sponsored later on. And processing times around the world are still not equitable, especially for countries with a significant racialized population. On the refugee side, the travel ban has meant a complete shutdown of our borders to asylum seekers. And disappointingly, the federal government has appealed a federal court decision declaring the US Canada's Safe Third Country Agreement unconstitutional. And finally, while the government has made a welcome announcement to address the political crisis in Hong Kong, the 5-year open work permit is only accessible to those with a university degree and thereby excluding the vast majority of pro-democracy Hong Kong activists. The government's mantra of Build Back Better must apply to everyone, regardless of their race, gender, and immigration status. As such, we recommend the following immediate measures, including expediting the processing of all extension applications for temporary residents in Canada, develop a safe harbor program for more Hong Kong activists and others in countries embroiled in political turmoil right now, allow family class immigrants already granted visas to come to Canada without delay, lock in the age of dependent children as of March 1st, 2020 to all applications, and extend the deadline for restoration of temporary resident status from 90 days to at least June 30th, 2021. And then in the medium and longer term, we ask you to implement a regularization program for all people with precarious immigration status, rebalance the overall system by increasing family verification with relaxing criteria that are fair and inclusive, eliminate the M&I requirement for parents and grandparent sponsorship and remove the quota, end immigration detention, repeal this Canada-US Safe Third Country Agreement, eliminate immigration status and an eligibility criteria for current and future government benefits, mandate IRCC and CBSA to collect and publish disaggregated race-based data for all classes of immigration, and finally, mandate IRCC and CBSA to take proactive actions to address structural racism within the system. COVID-19 should serve as a wake-up call that the survival of humanity depends on all of us working together, caring for and supporting each other, especially those who are the most marginalized. So we will hope our government will do the right thing. And thank you again for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Madam Go. Thanks to all the three witnesses for their opening remarks. We will now move to our round of questioning. For the first round of questioning of 6 minutes, we will start with Ms. Tencho. Ms. Tencho, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Go, I just have a number of questions for you regarding your expertise concerning Hong Kong. My understanding from the announcement from the Liberal government and the Minister of Immigration a few weeks ago, it primarily focused on economic immigration and, in some is going to allow, from its announcement, what they've said will allow us to expedite study permits and work permits. My concern is that only services what seems to be a young, educated, with some means population. Are there other populations in Hong Kong that were left out of that announcement from your perspective?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I do believe that there is a large number of people who are left out, and not all the young are included. There are a lot of young activists in Hong Kong who are still in high school. Many of them will not be able to afford the international tuition fee to come to Canada to study. And they would not qualify for the open work permit program that is only for post-secondary graduates. And there are also activists who don't have high school or university education, There's a couple of people who are now in Canada seeking refugee status. We know for sure that they will not meet any of these requirements, but they are lucky enough that they leave Hong Kong before the lockdown, so they are now able to apply for asylum here. But there are many others who are still in Hong Kong or still in other parts of the Asia or in other countries who won't be able to get here. And we had a recent conversation with the director of policy for the Minister of Immigration. They are not, not changing any of the policy with respect to asylum seekers. So I'm not sure how many of them would end up coming to Canada. And the program we have in place, those people who qualify will have other options. They can go to UK, they can go to Australia. They don't have to come to Canada. So I'm not sure how many people will actually benefit.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I wanted to ask a little bit more and expand on the parents and grandparents program. Our understanding is right now, as it stands, aside from that announcement, the Liberal government has mentioned that they will provide the parents and grandparents lottery, which is provided to anyone who wants to bring their parents and grandparents to Canada. That will, of course, also be an option for Hong Kong. But my understanding is anyone who wishes to apply for this has to win the lottery, and it comes about once a year in the fall. It just wrapped up in October. And that may take 2 to 3 years if everything goes well and they're selected and they have all the proper travel documents. If the travel documents have been taken, we know, of course, it's going to be very difficult for them to be successful in the lottery. So is my understanding correct, or is there another quicker way for grandparents and parents in Hong Kong who wish to join their families safely in Canada? Is there some other option that I'm not aware of that you may be aware of?
Right. So they do have the option of the super visa,
Right.
and they can come as a visitor, but that's not a permanent resident application.
Right.
So with respect to permanent application, the only option is through the lottery system. And I would like to point out that parents and grandparents are the only ones who are subject to lottery. And I don't understand why that is the case. And they are also the only one who has a quota. So the two factors combined, meaning that most people who want to sign up on January 1st or January 15th, they will not get in, right? They will not be selected. And so the vast majority will have to, they don't even have a queue for them to wait because they will not get in through the
And that's
lottery.
another question that I had right now. Are you familiar with how long study permits would take someone who applied? Let's say the government has mentioned they're going to open this up hopefully in the first quarter. So let's say best case January. So if someone goes to apply for these expedited study permits, how long would that normally take?
I'm not aware of how long the current process is. And of course, because of the COVID situation, it's kind of hard for me to comment on that right now. But I do think that they have been able to expedite some applications, as I said. So if they do expedite student permits from Hong Kong, it probably wouldn't take too long. But the question is who will actually qualify and how many will have the means to take advantage of that, opportunity.
Okay. And for my last question, I think we have about a minute left here. My understanding is the situation in Hong Kong is becoming increasingly dire. They're removing democratically elected officials. They're clamping down on civil liberties. In your expert opinion, do you think that Canada should be really ramping up our supports for those that are fighting for democracy and are need to flee to safety, so to speak? Do you feel that Canada is doing enough to show our support for the pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong?
I think so far the announcement really focused on economic immigration, so it's not really a humanitarian application or program. I do think that Canada should look at more from the humanitarian perspective, and we have made some, suggestions to the minister, even for those who are here in Canada right now, because there are pro-democracy activists even in Canada. Canada can easily just open a program for them to apply, just like we did when the June 4th Tiananmen Square happened in 1989. We had a special program for Chinese nationals to stay in Canada permanently. So we can have that for the people who are in
Sorry
Canada
for
right
interrupting,
now.
Ms. Go. The time is up.
Thank you very much, Madam Go.
We will now move on to Ms. Martinez-Ferreira. Madam Martinez-Ferreira, you have 6 minutes. You can start.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to say hi to ALPA, an organization which is in my riding, and I congratulate you for the exceptional work that you do in Hochelaga and in the eastern part of Montreal. So thank you for your work. You mentioned it earlier. We were quick to set up a family reunification system. We said 6,000 files per month. We facilitated the sending of biometrics, the interviews, but also we went from paper to digital files. And I'd like to have all your opinion about what we did during the pandemics, which showed that there was a need to modernize our system. So this is what I'd like to hear from you. What else could we do to improve the system, the efficiency of the system? And also, you talked about the Quebec reality. So this is what I'd like to hear. And how do you think we could improve this stream? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Madam Ferrada. And thank you for the invitation. We agree, and I do congratulate everyone for the work done for this shift to the digital system to make things easier, because these were very complicated systems, and often they are duplicated because of the agreement that there is between the federal and Quebec. If we are becoming, if we modernize the institution, which is a good thing, since March we've been working remotely, and what we realize is that it reveals the inequalities and the digital divide at two levels. First level is just having access to the broadband. It's extremely important. And it's not something that everybody has. Not everybody has the number of megabytes that you need to have all those services, because it's done remotely and through video conferencing. And the second thing is the digital literacy. You may have the tools, but you need to know how to use them. And often, with a shift like that, we use a lot of PDF files. And if you don't have access to a computer, it's very difficult to use these PDF files. Most people are connected, but they're connected with smartphones, small screens, and the forms are not adapted to these small screens. So it's a duplication of the work. We use those PDF, we fill them remotely. So this modernization, and I don't want to criticize it, but it just made more work for us. Monsieur Boucher, since we don't have much time, could you also talk about the agreement between Quebec and the federal government? Well, this is a very relevant question, because to get the permanent residency, on average, it's about 26 months. So I think we have interesting leverages in Quebec for the temporary foreign workers, for instance. And I believe also that it's important to capitalize on this. But right now, the borders are closed. So to renew our population, we really need to facilitate the immigration and the shift from temporary from being temporary to becoming permanent. And we really need to for the federal government and Quebec to talk again and see how we can facilitate everything. Because there is also the asylum seekers, and they come mainly in Ontario and in Quebec. And unfortunately, in Montreal, we have very few services for them. At the present time, you don't have any funding for the refugees. For the asylum seekers, no, there is no funding. There is just a little bit that we get for housing, but really no services for the asylum seekers. These are people who often have work permits, so they can be very productive. And we saw it during the pandemic in the health sector. So often they were asylum seekers. So this is something that we owe them. And we must offer them services because right now the doors are closed for them.
We will now move on to Madame Normandin. Madame Normandin, you have 6 minutes. You can please start.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the witnesses for their testimonies. It will be very helpful for our recommendations. So my questions are for Mr. Boucher. I'd like to know if you have examples of situations where the timelines, because you had to go through the medical exam a number of times. It can be quite costly, especially if it's for a whole family. So do you know cases where these made their application in jeopardy? Oh, we have many cases. Earlier, I talked about the timelines and the documents which which expire. And the main problem is really the medical examinations. Few families can afford those examinations. So the whole community network is trying to work and find money for these families. The community network is not letting them down. It's not because we don't have the money that we let them down. If there is a concern at the present time, it's really with the medical examinations, and we have lots of examples. So thank you very much for your work. And I don't think it should be the community networks which should take care of this issue. Do you think there is enough transparency and support from IRCC when we need answers for the people you represent? Well, it's difficult to say because I don't want to point the finger on anyone. But this is a problematic. Since March, because the borders are closed and the people that we are accompanying are not new people, it's people who have been seeing us for years. So at the present time, we are overwhelmed just to answer the questions. And unfortunately, most of the time, it has become better since fall. But in the first few months, we did not have the answers. And our network, our communication service worked very hard to share as fast as possible the information. It was very complicated. I think it was complicated for everyone. Again, we don't want to criticize anyone. Since fall, we've seen an improvement. The information is more fluid now, but there is still work to be done. Thank you. Regarding the timelines, you said that COVID did not help, but you'll agree with me to say that there were problems before and they've been exacerbated, and there would have been better resiliency if we had already had the digital system. Well, I said it at the beginning. COVID was just revealed the structural problems. We see it. We see it in the health network as well. It's easy. afterwards to say that there were structural problems. But they had been listed for a number of years. But indeed, COVID just revealed, exacerbated these problems. And now it's up to us to do our homework and try to overcome those challenges. And I think we're all aware of that. And regarding the timelines to renew the work permits, or those who can't renew them because they already renewed them too many times, what do you think of the idea of giving priority to the files of people who are already in Quebec, who are already here, who would be in difficulty if we did not deal with their file right away? Oh, we are totally in agreement. It's an important recommendation. People are already here. They are learning French. Often they already know French. They are workers. They are everywhere. They are in the slaughterhouses, in the health networks. So for us, it's very important to process their application. As I said earlier, it's also an issue of mental health, and that's very important. It's very well documented. And as we said earlier, if COVID revealed these structural problems, we don't want then to have other issues, mental health issues. And right now, the alarms are sounding everywhere in this respect. Thank you. Maybe regarding having everything in French, do we need to facilitate the access to French? Well, asking the question is giving the answer. For demographic reasons, the issue of French is an essential issue.
Is up. We will now move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you can start. You have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. My first question is to Ms. Go. In your presentation, you mentioned about the situation with the people in Hong Kong. You're absolutely correct to say that the government's announcements primarily focus on economic stream, and there's basically no agency stream. So to that end, the biggest issue, of course, is how will people actually get out of Hong Kong to even make the economic application? Because as it stands now, if they're not in Canada already, they would not be able to make such an application. And so I wonder if you have any comments in terms of specific recommendation for the government to address this agency component.
Sure. Can you hear me actually?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm having some Wi-Fi issue. Yeah, so we are speaking to the minister's office, and we're hoping that they can think of some other ways of letting the helping the Hong Kong pro-democracy activists come here. I think that part of it is I think if these measures are in place, they may not be, for various reasons, may not want to publicize it. But at the same time, we're not getting too many details as to what these measures may look like. So we also discussed the possibility of, government sponsored or private sponsorship. But as we know, this cannot be done with people in Hong Kong. They have to be in another country. We have shared with them the experience we had after the June 4th. They were, at that time, there were other measures in place to help some of the activists leave China. But I can only say that they are not giving me a lot of concrete information as to what, if any, measures they will have in place to assist those who are in Hong Kong right now.
Thank you very much. As far as we know, there aren't any programs in place to assist people to exit Hong Kong. And that's a huge problem because if they can't exit, they can't get into a system for application. Related to that, I want to raise the issue around family reunification. And the family reunification stream for people is primarily spousal sponsorship, dependent sponsorships, and there's no extended family sponsorship. Siblings, as an example, cousins, and so on. Would you recommend for the government to adopt an extended family reunification stream for the people of Hong Kong?
Certainly, I will. And in fact, we used to have those kind of programs in the 60s, 70s. The immigration family class was much broader at that time. We had an assisted relatives program. It was much easier to come here under those kind of program. And all that changed over the last 20 years. And even parents and grandparents we're making it much harder for them to come. So I would strongly recommend, as Canada is seeking to evacuate the 300,000 Canadians living in Hong Kong, they should evacuate their extended family at the same time. At the very least, their spouse, dependent children, adult children, parents and grandparents, and siblings.
Thank you very much. I was a beneficiary of the 1970s program, actually, to that end. Moving on to a different area on landed status on arrival. So giving people PR now. The fact of the matter is that our immigration levels numbers, we're not going to meet it this year because of COVID. The numbers are down pretty well on every single stream. So we have a lot of room to move. And so the government only announced that they would provide PR to people in the healthcare sector, the Guardian Angels program, even though they still don't have an application process in place for that. Would you recommend for the government to extend that PR status for all the other streams, for other migrant workers and people without status at the moment?
Yes, I would certainly, we're proposing a regularization process for everyone who are in Canada right now with precarious immigration status. And that would include migrant workers, as well as people who work in all kinds of essential work. Because even with some of the pilot projects that have been announced, they require a certain language speaking requirement that many of these workers may or may not need. And so even if they work in essential work, they may still not be able to take advantage of these programs. And certainly we have a lot of temporary foreign workers, some of whom may also want to stay in Canada permanently. So I would strongly recommend having a regularization program that would just allow anyone with precarious status to apply in Canada right now.
Caregivers. Many of the caregivers has been impacted significantly with COVID. Their 2-year work requirement has been interrupted and they're not going to meet that. Some of them are going to have children who are going to age out. Would you recommend for the government to count the interrupted period of time towards their 24-month work requirement, as well as to freeze the age limit, to freeze the age of the children so that they don't become, so they don't age out?
Yes, the COVID time, the COVID period, the entire lockdown period should not be counted to reduce the 20.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Go. Your time is up. We will.
Sorry.
Yes, Ms. Kwan.
So could you just finish that thought very quickly?
Yes, please.
So,
yes, Ms. Kwan.
And my recommendation around the dependent children is that you count the age as of the beginning of the lockdown. So it doesn't matter when the lockdown is lifted.
Thank you, Ms. Go. We will now proceed to our second round of questioning. And we will start with Mr. Hallen. Mr. Hallen, you can start. You have 5 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us today. Mr. or Dr. Christian, I'd like to get a little bit more information on how hard of a process it was trying to get your mother here. I know that it was a very difficult time for you, and I appreciate your comments today. But if you can give us a little bit more background information on what you went through just to go through the process and where things are at.
Thank you very much. Getting my mom here was a very big and difficult challenge. And I'm a lawyer by profession, so one will assume that being a lawyer who is very conversant with the immigration law, it would be a smooth ride, but unfortunately it wasn't. First of all, I participated in the lottery system. I did that for like about 5 years before, fortunately, in 2018, I was randomly selected to sponsor my mom, which is very exciting because I had 2 children. I work full time. My wife works full time too. So we needed someone to help. We commenced the application process, completed the application. My mom was originally from Nigeria, but she was a US permanent resident in Texas. We sent in the application. Immediately we sent in the application. Normally the application is supposed to be processed at the visa office very close to where the applicant is permanently a resident. But rather than having my mom's application processed in US or Canada, IRCC sent her application to Accra, Ghana for processing. That was like about 12,000 kilometers away from where she was living. And immediately I was notified of that. I contacted the office to let them know that the application should be processed in US or in Canada, but I never got any response, which is very typical. So I had to apply for access to information request, using access to information request to be able to track down the officer that actually handled the application before it was sent to Accra. And then I began communication with her to try to get the application back, but nothing. I had to write a letter to the then minister, Hussein, and still nothing happened. Even when the new minister took over, I still had to follow that up, with them. It was not until I had to go public before an action was actually expedited to have the application now processed. So I think the problem we experienced wasn't just a problem of being selected through the random process, but even issues with regards to processing of the application was a big deal.
Thank you so much for that. You had mentioned about the process, and we had the minister here last week, but we still didn't get any solid or proper answers about the current program that we have with grandparents and parents. The program was paused at the beginning, and I'm not sure why, because when they reopened it up, it was the same lottery system that we've seen before. And right now we're struggling, and I'm hearing this from constituents from all over, that there's just no transparency within what's happening in the current program that they opened up. It's been closed now for weeks and still nothing, no timelines. The minister couldn't answer any questions about it either, and it seems like he didn't know. So have you had any people that you know or yourself that have been dealing with the current process, and what do you, any comments on the transparency side or timelines?
Initially, there was the lottery system. At a point, the lottery system was replaced with what we jokingly refer to as the fastest finger process, whereby the fastest person to file in the application will be selected. Then later on, the whole process was kind of frozen early this year. We're kind of hoping at least something better was coming up. And when the announcement was made, it seems we kind of returned back to the same lottery system. But the problem with the lottery system is that you may have a situation where an individual will never be able to sponsor their parent if they are not fortunate enough to be picked up in that system. So there is no guarantee, no matter how hard you work, that you may be able to sponsor your parent, except if you randomly, by chance, get selected. So I think that is the process with this random system. And we're looking at a situation, at least, whereby people who have played this lottery system over a period of time, at least.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Christian. Your time is up. We will now move on to Mr. Reagan. Mr. Reagan, you have 5 minutes for your round of questioning. Please start.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and allow me to thank the witnesses for coming today and for your testimony. Ms. Go, you previously appeared at another committee this summer, and where you outlined recommendations for the government in developing measures for people coming from Hong Kong or possibly coming from Hong Kong, which included providing more temporary resident permits, like work and study permits, and options for permanent residence for people from Hong Kong. The government has presented a new list of pathways to support Hong Kong residents who want to study, work, or live permanently in Canada. And these new measures specifically include faster processing of work and study permits, new parameters for the postgraduate work program, and helping families stay together through spousal independent work and study permits. There's also, I guess, it also included 2 new pathways to permanent residency. Do you find these new measures helpful, and do they respond to your recommendations?
They respond in part to our recommendations, but not all of it. So it depends on the situation of that individuals. They may or may not fit into the announcement that was made on November 12th. Also certainly a lot of the people that we are aware of who are now stranded in places like Taiwan, UK, their situations are just as dire as those who are left in Hong Kong. And some of them may or may not be able to come in through the various the measures that that the government has currently put in place. So that's why we also want to push for more temporary resident permit type program, because then it's not usually it's not tied to any specific criteria. We will have there potentially more people would qualify for temporary resident permit as well. And on top of that, we also think that there needs to be a way of helping people leave Hong Kong, which is the piece that is really missing, as Ms. Kwan has mentioned. How do you help people leave Hong Kong? And I understand the government may not be able to address that publicly, but certainly we, at least share that kind of information with the people who are working, connected to the Hong Kong activists right now.
As I understand it, Ms. Goh, the list of new pathways presented by the government is designed to enhance and increase the promotion of existing programs and pathways for Hong Kong residents looking to come to Canada. And the new measures have been created in part to reinforce existing trends being used by people of Hong Kong, but also to allow additional pathways to permanent residency. I'd like to ask, actually, Ms. Goh and Mr. Christian, what improvements to the current plan would you like to see?
Sir, for myself, just for Hong Kong people, again, I think that, for instance, removing some of the requirements around the education or the language, and I think, or at least lower it so that more people can benefit from it. Because why having an open work permit for 3 years, but only people who have a university degree can apply, because those people among all the activists have the most options elsewhere. So I think that will be number one. But again, because it's after 3 years, it's unclear to me what would be the pathway to permanent resident. And that, we still haven't seen the actual applications. So we don't know exactly what criteria will be used at the end of the 3 years as well. Whether or not people will be able to stay in Canada after 3 years, we still don't know. So I think, just having temporary resident permit for more people with lower requirements, then it will provide more stability for the people who choose to come here and expand the groups that can come here.
Mr. Christian, I only have a few seconds, maybe 30 or so, if you don't mind answering the same question.
You have 50 seconds.
Oh, thank you. You're muted, sir.
I was having some sound problem. Can you please ask the question again? I can hear you very well now.
Yeah, I was asking about ways to improve the current plan in relation to Hong Kong in particular.
I think the one way to do that will be to be able to provide pathway for individuals there to be able to travel to Canada and be able to gain status in Canada, whether as students, temporary workers, at least create a path to permanent residency for them, whichever pathway brings them to Canada, being able to create a path to permanent residency so that they can be able to remain in Canada permanently and then contribute to the economy here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to Madame Normandian. Madame Normandian, you have 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'll go back to Mr. Boucher for my questions, and then I'll continue on with the francization questions and recommendations. I'd like to hear what you think about the possibility of bringing down barriers to access of French courses. For example, not asking for a study permit or for allowing such a study permit by making it a faster process. What would be your recommendation to make sure that francization happens? Well, first, earlier, we were talking about people from Francophone Africa. I think it would be important to improve access for these individuals. It's very limited. In general, in the Francophonie, it's limited, but especially for Francophone Africa. Now, there could be a way that we select people who already speak French, but who, after that, get to a level where they can integrate a different culture, because learning another language is also learning another culture. I'm sure we'd agree on that. So that would be a recommendation that would be very important in my eyes. Perfect. And as for wait times, you talked about the stress that the process creates for immigrants. Are you able to make a direct connection between the bottlenecks and the ease of integration for newcomers? Is there a direct impact on that? Yes, we see it. The administrative steps monopolize one's mind when we talk about mental load. It's huge for immigrants. All of this energy is spent on the administrative procedures. And they need that energy to learn things about their new society and culture, find a job. They need to put that energy to good use. So this mental load is something we see every day, and that creates distress. So we could say that the fact that somebody has to deal with IRCC's red tape is all energy they can't spend on other things like finding a job and getting settled. Yes, exactly. It takes a lot of time and energy. It's very energy intensive. Thank you very much. I think I'm all out of time.
Is up. We will now move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2.5 minutes for your round of questioning. You can start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to touch on the issue around parents-grandparents reunification. The sponsorship, as we know, is now subject to the Lakota draw. And so, Ms. Go, you mentioned that this is the only stream. You're absolutely correct. That is the only stream where it's based on a lottery. And this is also a stream that's ran into problems for years and years and years now. What do you think the government should do once and for all so that we can actually deal with parents-grandparents reunification in a proper way?
Once and for all, get rid of the lottery system and just let people apply just like any other stream, and get rid of the quota, and then start putting in the resources that are needed to processing the applications. Because what happened in the past is that, and it's been used by the previous government as an excuse to introduce introduce the quota system, is that there are many applications, and they create a backlog when they are not being processed in a timely manner. And we only had backlog because government was not spending the resources to processing these cases as we do for other type of applications, including spousal applications or independent applications. So I think there should be equitable distribution of resources among the different types of immigration categories, and even within the category of family costs, that there should be equitable resources. I remember years ago appearing before a standing committee during a different government, during different time. I was asked whether I should choose between my husband or my father, and which one is more important to me. And I try to explain that I cannot choose because they are equally important. I'm not even married at the time, and I'm still not married. Like from in our culture, father and husband, or spouse, are equally important. And I think that's the problem with the current system. It assigned more weight to spouse than to parent because it fits more into the Western nuclear family model. With more and more people, racialized people in particular from different cultures, we can no longer make that assumption. and that so the only fair and equitable way is treat all the family immigration the same.
Thank you. Quick question on for international postgrad students. Their work permit is not renewable, and of course they're required to fulfill.
Sorry
again,
for interrupting, Ms. Kwan. Your time is up. Before we end this round, we will have 2 minutes. In order to end the second round, we will have 2 minutes for the Conservative member and 2 minutes for the Liberal. So, Ms. Tenchu, you have 2 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go back to Madame Go and also just to thank all the members, all the witnesses from today for joining. Your testimonies were excellent, so thank you for your time. Madam Go, I just wanted to get your perspective if you have been made familiar or if you're aware of any sort of intimidation that's happening amongst our Chinese community in Canada, because we're hearing reports nationally that Chinese Canadians are being targeted by operatives from the Chinese Communist Party, and I'm just wondering if you've heard, if you're hearing anything on the ground that concerns you, that thinks that in that sense that we should do a better job to expedite the support for Hong Kong and to address concerns here at home in our own soil. Just wondering if you have any perspective or thoughts on that.
Sure. And in fact, just half an hour before this committee hearing began, I received an email from one of my colleagues from the Hong Kong Canada Alliance, who has recently or just today written to Minister Bill Blair about intimidation cases that they are, they have to deal with right now with respect to 2 of their members. So certainly it's a real issue that is happening to people who are here in Canada. And it's not just an issue for Chinese Canadians. It is an issue for Uyghur. It's an issue for Tibetans. So I think our government really should pay attention and try to support these activists, in every way possible and deal with it.
Thank you for your feedback. Do you think the government should be doing more to address the Uyghur situation in China and perhaps provide some sort of pathway to safety in Canada for them?
Yes, if we think that the situation in Hong Kong is bad, it's worse in Xinjiang, right? And so I think that really.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Go. Your time is up. We will now have last round of questioning of Mr. Dhaliwal. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the presenters. My question still goes to Ms. Go. Ms. Go, on the parent and grandparent application, because I have some history, because I first got elected in 2006, and so the Conservatives, what did Jason Kenney and the Conservative Party did is they cut down the number of parents and grandparents application to 5,000 applications. And they reduced the age of a dependent child from 22 years to 18 years. And it was the first come, first serve application. People prepare their application, they put all that work, they send it to Mrs. Saga, and the first 5,000 application got accepted, the others out. And what we did, and since we took over, like Liberal government, and I can see that if we average from 2016 to 2021, we accepted 4 times the application that Conservatives were accepting. We raised the age to 22 from 18. The backlog when Conservatives were in power, I'm going to ask you if you noticed that it was 7 years wait for the parents and grandparents. We brought down to under 2 years. Would you see that Liberal government has made improvements? And in fact, the mess that is created by the previous government when they shut down this parents and grandparents category.
When the Conservative implemented that program, there was a backlog of over, if I remember correctly, over 100,000 cases in the backlog system. And they wiped it out by just refusing to process any of these cases. The backlog has reduced by 2 things. First of all, you're making it even harder for people to sponsor their parents and grandparents by lifting the MNI requirement to MNI plus 30%. So
sorry for interrupting, Ms. Go. Your time is up. And with this, our first panel comes to an end. If any of the witnesses want to send some written submissions, you can please send it to the clerk of the committee, and we will consider them as we can draft the report. On behalf of all the members, I would like to thank all the witnesses for appearing before the committee and providing their important testimonies as we continue our study on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system. I will suspend the meeting for 2 minutes so that sound checks can be done for the second panel. So the meeting is suspended for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
call the meeting to order as we welcome our second panel. I would like, on behalf of all the members, I would like to welcome all our witnesses for appearing before us as we continue our study on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system. In this, Madame Normandin, you have some question? Yes, please.
Oui, j'aimerais simplement savoir, Madame la Présidente, puisqu'on...
Yes, I'd just like to know, Madam Chair, we've got 4 witnesses instead of 3, so that means that we'll need 5 more minutes for the 4th witness to do their opening speech. So I just want to make sure that we'll have a second round of questions.
There's no technical difficulty, and see after the first round, like I will determine how much time is left for the second round. So yes, we have 4 witnesses in this panel. Okay. I would like to welcome Roxanne Hatham and Amel Mara representing Churches de Residents Permanentes. We also have representative from Don Valley Community Legal Services, Nicole Guthrie, lawyer on immigration, and we have Laurentia University be represented by Robert Hash, President and the Vice Chancellor. And our last witness for today is Spousal Sponsorship Advocate being represented by Madame Misha Pelletier. So all the witnesses will have 5 minutes for opening remarks. We will start with Roxanne Hatham. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Pardon me, but I'm going to let Amel start because she's the first one to go. We'll share our time.
5 minutes.
Armel, you'll have to unmute your microphone.
Excusez-moi, merci.
Pardon me, thank you. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, MPs, we'd like to thank this committee for hearing us today and listen to our testimonies around wait times for permanent residency in Quebec. Our objective is to draw your attention to the status of our applications. My name is Armel Mara. I represent the group who is waiting for permanent residence. And so I've come to Quebec in 2017 as an international student. I filed my request in 2018, and I'm still waiting, and I don't have a work permit since December of 2018, and I can tell you that there are a number of us in this situation. We are a group of permanent resident candidates, and we've been waiting for a decision since 2017, 18, 19, and 20. We already have our Quebec selection certificates, which is essential for requesting permanent residency. Despite that, we have to wait 26 months, and sometimes 32 months to become a permanent resident. Tired of waiting for months and years for some people without any hope for the future, we've decided to take concrete action and be proactive and alert the public authorities. We've created a Facebook group, 3,700 members. We even have a petition with almost 10,000 signatures. We had a protest in Montreal and Quebec on November 13th to draw attention to this. Why have we come to this? Well, we haven't received answers. The wait time has almost doubled. And then on top of that, there's COVID-19 and then telework, working from home. We've had to work extra hard. I'll now pass it over to my colleague. So as Armel explained here, a few examples of why our situation is precarious. We are requesting permanent residency in Quebec. So the wait time has gone from 16 to 26 months, official wait time, sometimes even more. There are costs for renewing permits, and this is not the same in other provinces. Medical certificates are good 1 year only, then you have to pay again and go do a new one. There are pregnant women here. They're still waiting for their permanent residency. That's stressful for them, and that has impacts on their health. There are a lot of impacts on us as workers. We can be without a job overnight. So this is very precarious. Once we've been through all of this and we've waited 24 months, the decision is made, and sometimes we wait months before we get the confirmation email from the IRCC office here in Montreal. So faced with these problems, well, we're asking the government to listen to us. The first thing is to allow for an open transitory work permit for as a temporary measure for permanent residency applicants. Then we'd like to have a realistic end date and commitment to uphold it. We need to know how much time is left for us to wait. And we also there needs to be an extension of the medical certificate deadline because sometimes those cost a lot of money. And the fourth thing is there needs to be a prolongation. Rather, we want to stay in the country and we want to get involved, but unfortunately, we need to be a permanent resident for 2 years. And the longer we wait for that, more time goes by, and the more this will take time for us to request citizenship. And the last thing, which is one of the most important, is to provide a confirmation of receipt to those who have been waiting because they sent their applications in 2019 and 2020. We have people who sent their applications in July of 2019 and still haven't received a confirmation of receipt from IRCC. They can't even access their file online to see where things are at. They're afraid that they might get refused at some point because one piece of paper is missing or something's no longer valid. They don't know what to do. That's what we're afraid of today.
Your time is up. We will now have to move to our next witness, Dawn. We will have Don Valley Community Legal Services being represented by Nicole Guthrie to please start. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you for having us as witnesses. I'm a lawyer at Don Valley Community Legal Clinic. We are one of the bigger clinics. We are merger of two former clinics, Summerlin Community Legal Services and East Toronto Legal Services. We're funded by legal aid and we have quite a large population in our area. Some of our clients include clients living in Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park areas. These areas have seen quite a number of COVID-19 cases, which has, of course, impacted our services, our ability to provide services to our clients. We understand the uniqueness of these circumstances, and I do acknowledge that IRCC has been quite flexible in allowing extensions and have been understanding of submissions and other documents, especially the Niagara Falls office has been very good to us. However, there are still a lot of our clients that are stuck in limbo because of all the impact that COVID-19 has had on IRCC services. We think it would be helpful if IRCC would focus their attention on providing resources for several areas. Of course, as everyone has mentioned in previous presentations and in this presentation, processing times have gone through the roof, basically. We think that there are certain circumstances where IRCC could expedite applications, especially for overseas family members, such as those that are waiting for permanent residents who are protected persons or family member spouses, dependent children. It would be good if IRCC provided a clear set of criteria for officers to expedite applications from the get-go. So whether it's severe mental health issues, physical risk to family members overseas, we think it would be good if IRCC could just establish criteria so officers can expedite applications without us having to advocate or resorting to temporary resident permits, which are almost always rejected. We think that there need to be a more clear, defined policy regarding dual intent. So, for instance, spouses who are waiting overseas can apply for TRVs and enter Canada while they wait for their applications to be processed. We have a number of our clients who have their family members with pending spousal sponsorship applications being rejected for TRB applications because the officer seems to ignore the fact that there is a pending spousal application, even when there's mental health issues involved. One of the things that we see with temporary foreign workers is the need for a relaxation of LMIA requirements. There are a lot of temporary foreign workers here, especially caregivers who have been in Canada for years working on work permits. The process of getting an LMIA has been impacted by COVID-19. We think IRCC should look into relaxing the requirement that these workers get LMIAs, maybe issuing short-term, like say for 1 year, COVID-affected work permits so that these employees can support themselves and find work. With regard to biometrics, we have a number of applications that have been submitted since March, and we know that biometrics have been slowly coming back online, but they're not up to the speed they were before. It would be really good if IRCC would continue processing other aspects of the application, medicals, security clearances, instead of having applications on hold while medicals expire, security clearances expire, and clients have to do all these things all over again and spend a lot of money. It would be really helpful if there could be concurrent processing of all these different areas of the application. Temporary foreign workers are very much impacted by COVID-19. We have a large number of caregivers in our area, and a lot of these caregivers have either applied for permanent residence under the interim program or are applying under the new pilot. A lot of our clients do not have work permits.
Sorry for interrupting, Madame Guthrie. Your time is up. We will now move on to Mr. Robert Hash, representing Laurentia University.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam.
Plus de traduction.
Madam Chair, point of order. There was no interpretation at the end of the last intervention.
Whole period? For all 5 minutes?
Vers la fin. Vers la fin seulement.
No.
The end only.
Just towards the end.
Donc, si c'est possible, peut-être de travailler là-dessus pendant.
Could we please work on that during the other presentations? Because I don't want to lose any time, please.
Just make sure, before we start, we will make sure it is in order. So the interpretation stopped for the last 5. The interpreters were not able to interpret because of the low quality of the voice coming in. So maybe we can give 1 more minute to Madame Guthrie to just repeat your last minute. Madame Guthrie, can you please bring the microphone near your mouth so that the interpreters can hear that clearly? So you will have 1 minute to just repeat what you said in the last 1 minute.
My apologies. I will try to speak slowly and as clearly as I can. So as I said before, we would like IRCC to adopt a more flexible approach when it comes to biometrics, concurrent processing of other aspects of the application with regards to temporary foreign workers, particularly caregivers. We have a lot of interim caregivers and pilot project caregivers who have applied for permanent residents who have not been able to receive work permits. And under the previous program, the Living Caregiver Program, once an applicant had submitted an application, they were issued a work permit. Our clients are stuck in limbo. A lot of them do not have work permits, cannot move to new employers because they've been impacted with employment by COVID. It would be helpful if IRCC
Sorry for interrupting. Your time is up. Now we will move on to Mr. Robert Hash, President and Vice Chancellor of Laurentia University. Please start. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. My name is Robert Hash, and I'm pleased to speak to you today from Laurentian University in Sudbury in northeastern Ontario, located on the 1850 Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory and on the traditional lands of the Atikamekshane, Anishinaabeg, and Wanipitei First Nations. First, thank you for the invitation. I also thank you for leading this study and for the critical work that parliamentarians are doing in this extraordinary time. Laurentian University is a microcosm of Canada. We are northern, we are bilingual, we are committed to reconciliation, and we are focused on internationalization. The city of Greater Sudbury is a regional hub for post-secondary education and learning in northeastern Ontario, with Laurentian University, Cambrian College, and Collège Boreal. Approximately 6% of our students are international at Laurentian, coming from over 60 countries, with our most significant populations being from China, India, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iran, and Côte d'Ivoire. Plus précisément, au cours des derniers
Specifically, in past decades, Sudbury has become a hub for Francophone African immigrants, particularly from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ivory Coast. Many of these newcomers to Sudbury also have close ties to Laurentian, where they study, teach, and work. In May 2019, the federal government announced, as part of the Action Plan for Official Languages, that Sudbury was one of 14 welcoming Francophone communities across the country. In alignment with this plan, Laurentian has a major focus on the vitality of official language minority communities and increasing the proportion of French-speaking permanent residents in Canada outside of Quebec.
Of our embassies, particularly in Africa, and we are very grateful for the regional knowledge that these embassies or visa application centers have. Due to a central shift in visa processing for a number of African countries, however, international students have experienced challenges in realizing their desire to study in Northern Ontario and to have their immigration applications accepted in a timely fashion. Laurentian has found that applicants from many African countries that have applications processed in Dakar, for example, have a higher refusal rate due to aspects of their applications that would be better understood by VACs in their respective countries who have the regional knowledge to assess their applications. The same has been experienced for Algerian applications being processed in Paris. I strongly believe that universities can be essential partners to the IRCC to help increase mutual understanding of, on our end, academic applications, our acceptance practices, and rigorous credential evaluation, and on your end, immigration application standards and what immigration officers look for when assessing the applicant's academic path. One recommendation to assist immigration officers would be to require study permit applicants to include their letter of motivation to study at our university with their study permit application. This would help immigration officers to better understand the academic journey that the student is proposing. Many international students, and in particular Francophone African students, feel at home in Sudbury and in Ontario's north. They will play a critical role in the economic recovery of our region. Working together, universities can help the federal government to leverage an expedited return of international students in a safe manner to help drive economic recovery. Sudbury must remain a destination of choice for these students who represent a pool of bright, engaged, and committed talent that will transform our communities in positive ways. Thank you again to all members of the committee for their work during the COVID-19 pandemic. With your support, we are committed to building stronger communities and a stronger Canada. Thank you again, merci tout le monde, for the opportunity to appear.
Thank you, Mr. Hash. We will now move to our last witness for this panel, spousal sponsorship advocate, being represented by Madame Misha Pelletier. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Madame Pelletier.
Madame la Présidente, membres distingués du
Madam Chair and distinguished members of the committee, since the beginning of the pandemic, families have had to deal with a very difficult reality. Their prolonged separation for an undetermined amount of time only made their fear and suffering worse. I am here as a representative of 8,000 individuals. The announcement of the 8th of June was celebrated for a while until it was realized that they were excluded from the measures announced. We had the option of sending in a visa request for temporary permit, but it was nonetheless left without an answer. Certain people weren't eligible because of travel. Families were discriminated against. This coming from a developed country. Furthermore, the 26th of September, there was an announcement that promised an expedited processing time for family reunification. We waited with some optimism, although cautious optimism, around these promises. A part of the announcement was implemented through video conference. Our members, however, are still waiting for these promises to be fulfilled. Often it takes 18 months for these interviews. It is urgent that reunification be accelerated and restrict movements during the pandemic. The IRCC continues to impose travel for medical examinations. This process needs to be done in the country of origin of the sponsored person. If it's not possible, it is proposed that the medical examination happen in Canada with the acceptance of a visitor visa. Today, close to 9 months after the beginning of the pandemic, there are still problems. The measures taken are slow. 12,000 decisions were given since October, as announced. We would like to have an explanation as to why so few of our families have seen their files progress. On the 30th of October, there was a double intention that was highlighted in an instruction from the IRCC around visitor visas. We're seeing positive results, some, but there's still months-long waiting times, and there are a number of cases that are refused. The applicant should have the opportunity to respond to agents' concerns before the decision is made. Very few of our members were contacted. Now, Section 179B was modified, and a lot of Canadians have seen their request denied. Applicants must have a business, a home, or a long history of travel, or thousands of dollars. However, IRCC imposes these strict criteria from applicants in developing countries. Now, are spouses from the US and Europe treated in the same way? No. The interpreter signals that there is a problem with the video and sound of the witness. We are proposing economic solutions that are more efficient. In the short term, investigations on criminality for initial applicants, biometrics at the person's arrival in Canada. The visas can be issued electronically. And the long term, one access to the IRCC Center where the representative and the individuals can have a chronological file in place. And there needs to be original documents as required can be sent afterwards. While we're following up with this study, we know that there have been changes.
Madame Pellet, Pelletier, your time is up. We will now move to our round of questioning. We will start with our first round of questioning, and Ms. Dencho will lead that first round. Ms. Dencho, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being with us today. We appreciate your testimony. Misha, I have a few questions for you, Ms. Pelche. My apologies, Ms. Pelche. I appreciated your remarks, and I know that we've had a conversation previous, and I found your story very compelling of why there needs to be some change in this process. So, if you feel comfortable, would you share a little bit about your experience? My understanding is, if my memory serves me, you've been waiting for about 2-3 years for your husband's application, and you have a child together. Would you like to share a little bit more about with the committee, please?
Yeah, certainly. We started our first application in September of 2018, and this is our second application. When we started our first application, we did it here in Canada under conjoint de fait, which is sorry, I'm forgetting my words in English, but under common law. And his visa had expired in the meanwhile, and he was asked to do the application outside of Canada. I have a child with my previous marriage, but he has become the stepfather of my child and is very active member in our family. So he was asked to go back to Canada in April of 2019, and we needed to do our application outland, him in Tunisia, me here. So I went to Tunisia, and we had to get married in order to start a new application. Our application has been since August of 2019, and it's already past another year. So it's been 2 years. We're in the process now.
Okay, so it's been about 14 months since you put forward a second application where you were after you were married, so to speak. So starting afresh with that application, it's been 14 months. What has the communication from IRCC been like with you? Have you done the interview process?
We don't need an interview since he's
Okay.
actually we live together here in Canada, and we have a lot of proof of our Canadian lifestyle together.
Mhm.
So we're not pending an interview right now. Actually, we received the pre-arrival letter, but we are still. I mean, I've heard that it can collect us for up to 6 months. So, I mean, with the delays and everything, you just never know.
Okay. Well, certainly it's good news that you've got the pre-arrival letter, and you'll keep us posted, I'm sure. And you mentioned the group as well that you're with to advocate for families in a similar situation to you is 8,000 strong. What has been some of the feedback you've received from them in the past number of months? I know that the Minister of Immigration mentioned he would process 6,000 applications every month for October, November, and December, which is 18,000. Have you received any positive feedback, negative feedback?
I mean, we see that there is movement compared to when it was like COVID and all the visa offices have shut down. But then again, we're still waiting for interviews, and we haven't received any interviews at this point, which is huge. I mean, some people have waited over 18 months so far just for an interview. And then also there's the expiries of the medicals, so they're being asked to do their medicals again, even though, I mean, these people are quite relatively healthy, and the conditions to go and do medicals again is not that easy. I mean, a person from Cuba, for instance, needs to travel to Tobago, and it's costly. It can cost up to like $6,000 just to go and do a medical again.
And has IRCC provided any option, or have you had any discussions with them to sort of, because of COVID and these medical have expired? Do you know if there's any thought on sort of expanding the medical expiry date, like just applying that last one? Have they been open to that idea, or?
It's hit or miss. It depends on the file, and I mean, from what I've seen, even a healthy young couple will be asked to go back and do a medical. So it's kind of confusing. We don't know why some people are given extensions and others aren't given extensions. But given the situation of COVID, you would think that at this point, everybody would at least have the extended medicals.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that no interviews are happening. Is that because they're not able to you have to do the interview in person? Is that?
Well, from what I heard, that they were actually offering video conferencing, and that was part of the announcement on the 25th of September. But honestly, from what I've heard is that they're not equipped to actually do these video conferences yet. But considering that these are Canadian employees in these visa offices all over the world, and we have the same communication, you'd think that by now, with COVID, that they would have supplied these agents with the right equipment in order to do these interviews.
Yes, it has been 9 months. And
Yes.
so if you're understanding from certain visa offices that have Canadian employees, Canadian offices in other countries that would process and do these interviews, they haven't been equipped with the technology in the past 9 months.
Exactly. And most of them work from home, but still there needs to be a quick, efficient way in order to serve the people.
Did you have any remaining thoughts? We have about 20 seconds left on how this process can be improved for folks like you and others.
At this point, we need to speed up the process by actually giving electronic visas as well. That would be great. And abolishing the Article 179B for visitor visas. That would be great as well.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I believe that's all my time. Thank you, Ms.
10
Pelche.
Stencho. Now we will move on to Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you to all the witnesses that has come out today. My first question will go to President and Vice Chancellor Robert Hatch. Since August, our government has introduced temporary measures for students to study online from abroad until April 30, 2021, with no time deducted from the length of future post-graduation work permit, provided 50% of their program of study is completed in Canada. My first question is, do you find this an appropriate balance to maintain public health safety, but also avoid penalizing international students? And the second part is, what improvement do you suggest to the current framework for international students?
So thank you very much for both questions. I would say in the first instance, it has indeed been very helpful. We're quite thankful to government to allow students to study online. And we're also, I will add, thankful that the government has now approved for students to come back to the country. It has worked very well in most cases. We have, I'll just give a quick example. I meet regularly with small groups of students. I do it virtually now. And just last week, I was meeting with a student who it turned out he was sitting in Côte d'Ivoire as he was having the conversation with the president. There are some challenges with respect to the 24-hour clock and activities for students. So many of them are looking very much to come back to Canada. And we are amongst the universities that have arranged to allow for their safe and secure return and integration back as we do more face-to-face activities, hopefully starting in the new year. With respect to additional measures, I really think for us at Laurentian, what we see, particularly with our Francophone student population, is processing of visas and things that we can do to get them ready to come and to initiate their studies.
Thank you. And my second, now the question will go to spousal sponsorship advocates. Family and spousal reunification is one of the top priorities of our government. And our recent announcement of spousal sponsorship increased the level of IRCC staff by 66% to make sure that we are continuing to address the backlogs that were there and that we both historically inherited from conservatives and as a result of the pandemic were addressed. We made sure that this increase would lead to 49,000 decisions by the end of this year and are looking to pilot remote interviews as well. And my question is, how do you see these developments as helpful to first reducing backlogs, but also aiding in modernizing the system by decreasing the extent of system inefficiencies?
Thank you so much, Mr. Dhaliwal, for that question. we have 8,000 members that we take care of in our group that we oversee. And from what I've seen, these numbers are not adding up at this point. I mean, we are hoping, we have seen advancement. We've seen people receive their pre-arrivals or request for a medical. So there's news coming in order to actually finalize these files by the end of December. I'd be very surprised considering that there's a lot of backlog. As for like actually like speeding up the process in general, I'm just wondering if it's actually creating delays in other streams, such as like the TRVs, like the visitor visas. So again, the interviews sounds like it's a pilot project and not an actual project that's happening for good. And we haven't seen anyone receive an interview yet. And looking forward to hearing about that.
On the other hand, our government has also made some changes to the IRCC spousal application system. One of them is to make sure that first we digitize those paper-based application and convert them from paper to digital form. And this is a piece that we hope will bring spousal application into the technological age, so it can be processed from anywhere in the world. How do you see this is an improvement to the previous system?
That is great news, but my question actually to that is actually, if you're digitalizing these files, do you need uploads? Do you need us to send it by mail first, and then after that you digitalize it, or can we just upload the actual documents without having it sent by mail? Because to me, it's like as if we're duplicating the work. We're actually sending out our file by mail, and then you're digitalizing it. So it feels like it's a duplication of work anyways, because you need to receive those documents by mail first. Why not just upload the file and then it's over with?
Certainly. I mean, there are those files are sitting. I mean, there are people who have already applied and the decisions are not made. And even those applications, when we digitize them and those decisions are made, it will reduce that backlog of time, because particularly if we look at some of the countries, for example, I give you a perfect example in Pakistan, the applications are processed in London.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Dhaliwal. Your time is up. We will now move on to Madame Normandien. Madame Normandien, you have 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Ma première question.
Thank you very much. My first question is for Ms. Hatem and Ms. Mara. I'd like to ask you about citizenship and the number of days. So if I understand, the days that are spent in Canada during permanent residency were used in the calculation for citizenship, so that you won't be disadvantaged compared to other provinces. In fact, to get citizenship, you have to be 2 years with the status of permanent resident. But if I take my example, I was supposed to have my permanent residency in October 2020, according to the IRCC. But between that date and when I will get it, well, that's like lost time for my citizenship, whereas that's not my fault. And the wait time is very long. So I'd also like to hear what you have to say about the fact that not all employers accept to pay for the renewal of a permit. Do you have examples of cases where people lost out on opportunities, good jobs with good pay, for example? Anyone in your group like that? Yes, Armel is the perfect example of that. Thank you. Yes, we have lots of examples. Personally, I sent in my application in 2018, and when I sent it in, the wait time was 17 months. But now we're at 26 months, and I still don't have my residency. So I've been waiting many, many months. And since December of 2018, I have not worked. Why? Because when I sent in my application for permanent residence, I had to get a closed work permit. However, it's hard to find an employer who's willing to hire you in that situation, because you have to the employer has to make a request for you and pay for it. And there also has to be, you have to wait up until 6 months to get to get your worker in. And so I didn't find anybody. They wanted to find someone who was already a resident. And so I've been waiting 2 years. And so for 2 years, I haven't had a job. Thank you very much. A question from Ms. Pelletier now. The 30th of October, there was an announcement about the double intention. Did that make some people more hopeful that more visas would be accepted after that? Thank you for that question, Ms. Normandin. Of course, it was an announcement that did give us hope. But in the end, it still leaves the agent the discretion of deciding if they're going to grant the visitor visa or not. And the wait times went through the roof for visas from 10 days to 265 days now. So I'm wondering if they're taking the same officers and using them for the digital requests, and that's why that's happening. Okay. You also have a group with a lot of individuals. Since the announcement, do you have the impression that there have been more visas accepted, or are you still getting negative responses or people refusing or referring to Section 179B? Today, I sent a request out to the group and wanted to know if there were any denials or refusals, and I received many emails in the same day containing, and there were many of them mentioned Section 179B. It depends what country it was. For Mexico, they seem to be getting more visitor visas, but from other countries, no. So I think communication is a huge problem within IRCC. I think the visa offices don't have the same information across the board. And for both groups, Ms. Hatem and Ms. Mara, and then Ms. Pelletier afterwards, you can discuss among yourselves and your members. Do you get the impression that it was necessary to create that kind of group because IRCC is not giving you enough information when you request that information? Yes, thank you for the question. I think that's the main reason why we created these groups, because first of all, we all thought we were alone in this situation, but then we realized that many people were in the same boat. And so these groups became a source of comfort, and they give us strength to move forward because it causes a lot of stress and mental angst. So yes, it was necessary. We needed that, and we've been trying to get people to understand us because when the media talks about it, that helps us. Ms. Pelletier, would you like to add to that? Yes, of course. I completely agree with Ms. Mara. It's the same thing in our group. Thank goodness we got together because we're stronger in numbers. And that is how we've been able to mobilize as a group and talk to MPs and get changes, and hopefully get changes around immigration. And very quickly, yes or no, the fact that you're a group, does that allow you to better gauge whether or not IRCC's announcements work or not? Yes, we often do surveys, and indeed, it does help. People participate in those surveys.
Madam Pelletier, your time is up. We will now move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. My first question is to Ms. Pelletier. Part of the issue, of course, and frustration for families is that they can't readily get an update on what's going on with their files. Literally, people are not able to contact anyone. And we were talking a little bit about update in systems. Would it make sense for the government to provide a system whereby you can actually get online and find out what is the status of your application? And similarly, if a TRV has been rejected, you would be able to get that information on the website when you go onto your account. similar to that of your taxes. When you go into my account, you can be able to get all of your information. Would that make sense for the government to actually proceed in this way?
Thank you, Madam Ms. Kwan, for the question. Yes, absolutely. We came to the conclusion that there's a lot of callbacks to and emails and calls to the MPs based on the fact that we're not accessing our information because either we have an immigration lawyer or a consultant accessing our file and we don't have access. So it would be logical to basically give one point of access as well as have only one website rather than two like CLEGC and KIK that we have right now. We have two websites to access. So it creates a lot of confusion for the applicants. It would be great if we just had one site with all the information and that's it, that both the immigration lawyer and the applicant can access at the same time.
Thank you. On a similar question, you raised the issue around expired medicals, which is very expensive and costly. So you propose the government to extend the periods to which the medicals could apply, or alternatively, could the government also ensure that the medicals are done at the end stage? So that is to say, in the final step of your application, once everything's approved and you get your medical done, then you get your medical done. And then once you complete that medical, your application is then approved. Would that not make sense so that you don't run into a situation where you have an expired medical over and over again and having to go through the process numerous times?
Yes, exactly. It's very costly for our members to travel from one country. For instance, Cuba has to go to Tobago, Trinidad. It's over $5,000-6,000, as well as Honduras. Them too, they need to travel in rural areas. It can be very dangerous. So the best thing to do is to actually leave it for the end, so that way they don't have to run into the same problem, regardless of if it's COVID or not. We would ask that it's done at the end of the application rather than in the middle or near the beginning.
I'm going to turn to Ms. Guthrie, actually. Ms. Guthrie, you were talking about caregivers who are experiencing a difficult time in the face of COVID. Many of them are not getting their 24-month work requirements completed because of COVID, and that's been interrupted. And then the other issue, of course, is that some of their children are aging out with their PR application. I wonder, Ms. Guthrie, if you can comment on them, what your recommendation is for the government to address this issue.
We would recommend that the government look at applicants who enter the program, and particularly for COVID at this point, it would be helpful if applicants, the age of children, are locked in from March. Ideally, it would be great if like the Refugee Protection Program, once you apply into the program, the age of children are locked in on that date. It would be helpful if a similar criteria is adopted for the caregiver applicants.
Okay, so that would be locking in the age of the children so they don't age out. And then, of course, on the issue around interrupted time, should the government, for example, count the interrupted time towards the 24-month work requirement?
It would be helpful if the government would be flexible and count that time as well. It's very hard for caregivers to find employment, and the processing time, as we know, of work permits and LMIAs, which some caregivers still need, is really long and really difficult. We're looking at this point, the processing time is for a work permit only is 6 months, and LMIAs are similarly taking much longer. So you're looking at clients being unemployed for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So it'd be really helpful to count that time.
Thank you. I have 1 minute left. So in this last minute, do you have any other recommendations to make to the government in terms of changes in policy and approaches as a special COVID measure for migrant workers?
As I stated earlier, and I wish to reiterate, it would be very helpful if all these workers who are either waiting for permanent resident applications that are in process, like interim caregivers and caregivers under the new pilot, who have been told that processing time for work permit is a year. If they could get short-term work permits that would help them to be able to work and count that work time, or at least earn money so they could help their family. A lot of these are women of color, single women who come to Canada and are trying to support their young children back home and their families back home. It would be really helpful if we could issue.
Sorry for interrupting, Madam Gautier. Your time is up. We will now.
We cannot join the meeting, Madam Chair, soon.
Yes, we will have a shorter second round. So where first round comes to an end, and we will now have second round. We will have 4 minutes each for Liberal and the Conservative, and then 2 minutes each for Bloc and NDP. So we will start with Mr. Soraya. Mr. Soraya, you will have 4 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Martinez.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses bringing back your feedback to our thing. Listening to Amelia and Roxanne from Montreal, it looks like a Liberal nightmare on Elm Street. My hand got tired listening to the whole thing from Amelia. Getting tired. This system's supposed to work for you, not for the RRCC. The students bring in $23 billion towards the Canadian economy. Tired of waiting. The system doesn't work for you. 10,000 signatures. You have sent it to the minister. Waiting, still waiting. Cost of renew, the frequent, the cost of renewal, the visas. Is there any suggestions, Amelia or Roxanne, you have to the government, to the minister, what they should be doing? The system should be working for you rather than working for somebody else. Amelia, Roxanne?
Donc, déjà, ce qu'on a appris lors de notre un peu enquête sur notre situation.
Well, what we found out from our survey is that in Quebec, the applications are sent in paper format and processed that way. We said, oh, we don't have access to the electronic form. So when COVID hit and people weren't working at IRCC, so none of those applications could be dealt with. So I'd like IRCC to modernize their system for Quebec, because sending in paper applications does not work. And as I said, there needs to be open work permits to avoid visa fees, so that each time we change employers, we have to negotiate anew. Sometimes employers say, if you pay for your visa application, I'll hire you. That's where we're at. So there needs to be an open permit, like it is in other provinces in Canada. And I'll give Armel the mic. Thank you, Mr. Soraya, for the question. Indeed, the work visa application in Quebec is very difficult and awful. When you have to ask for a closed permit, it's very difficult. It would be best to give us an open work permit that would allow us to wait for our permanent residency without having to renew, because there are cases where the permit is renewed and then it's just for 6 months and then you have to start it all over again. It's very tiring for us and employers. So yes, an open work permit would already be a big improvement for us. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Soraya. Please, interpreters are asking if you can move your microphone closer to your mouth, so they're having some difficulty hearing.
Sorry, can you hear me, please? Is it better?
Yes.
Thank you so much. What I'm saying is, the students are young, they want to work, they want to stay in the country, they speak the languages. We should be working with the students, which they're going to be working for the next 30 or 40 years in this country. So what would you suggest to this government and to the Liberal MPs who are listening to you right now? What should be done to make sure people like you, they're heard and the system is working for you?
Alors, merci encore pour...
Thank you for that question. So that the system works for us. Well, we're in Canada. We're in Quebec. We were chosen by Quebec. Is it normal that we are francophones in Quebec and that it takes 30 months to get permanent residency after having already spent 1 year with my selection certificate? I think it's a little unfair for us. And these are long-term projects. So when we're dealing with situations where, look, some people have kids and families, and if they have to renew all of their permits all the time, there are kids going to school. And overnight, they can find themselves going to their home country.
We will now move on to Madame Martinez-Farada. You will have 4 minutes. Madame Martinez-Farada.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your testimonies today. I'm sure that they will help with drafting the committee report. I'd like to come back to the issue of modernization. COVID has shown us that there is a need to modernize the system and to work with a digital system. Now, there are a number of things that have been put in place during COVID. For example, biometrics, electronic documents. There's also been people with closed permits could ask for open ones. There's been 10-day wait times. There's been a commitment to study applications for family reunification, thousands of them in December. And we need to talk about data as well. Misha was talking about surveys earlier. Now, we talked about the number of files processed. It's important not to give stats that we don't have. And I think the work is still underway. I'd like to talk about immigration in Quebec. As you know, Canada has a special agreement with Quebec. It's the only province that has an agreement like that. Quebec's jurisdiction is respected and the amount of immigration that Quebec wants. I'd like you to tell me what you think could be done in Quebec, all while respecting Quebec's jurisdiction, to improve immigration and the increase of family reunification, because, of course, our government would like that. So I don't know if there are some things that you think we could work on, either on modernization or with Quebec. So Misha and Armel, maybe you can speak to that. Thank you for the question. Personally, I think that Quebec needs to relax the rules for their selected candidates. I can't be in Quebec and wait 18 months to get a confirmation of receipt. That is too long. And then 24 months and an expired document. So Quebec needs to relax the rules for us so that we don't end up in this precarious situation. I can assure you that it is very discouraging for someone to live in this situation. And it's the same for families. Some of them are very lost. When you go through this, it's absolutely heartbreaking. Sometimes we think our situation is bad, but when we look at what others are going through, we really feel bad. So the quota problem needs to be improved as well. All those things would help. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martinez, for the question. Definitely, it would help us a lot if we could download our documents without doing a mail-in application. It's 2020 now, so making everything digital would be much easier for people who want to send in their documents. Now, for the documents and the wait time, well, we'd like to have transparency with IRCC. How many files are processed?
Move on to Madame Normandin. Madame Normandin, you will have 2 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Peut-être une question.
Thank you very much. Maybe a quick question for Madame Marin Artem. You've asked for a confirmation of receipt for your permanent residency application. That's very stressful to not know if your application was received. But are there other problems? For example, having access to the Quebec health care problem, even though receiving a confirmation of receipt is a very simple thing. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Yes, without a confirmation of receipt, that means that we can't have online access to our application, and there's no information as to know whether or not it's complete. So in July of 2018, if someone has their CSQ and send their permanent residency later, their CSQ can expire shortly thereafter. So if the person didn't get a confirmation of receipt and the person doesn't know if their file is complete, and then it could be sent back from IRCC and their CSQ is no longer even valid. So we met with the immigration department and we told them, listen, the CSQs need to be extended. People who are waiting to get a confirmation of receipt, and they have to know that their CSQ will still be valid. That's their selection certificate. And then as for the Quebec health insurance plan, well, nobody really knows. For example, we've got some people who had access to the health plan just with their CSQ, whereas others, including me, were told, no, you have to have a closed work permit to access the health plan. So it would be good to get information from the Quebec government, information about the rules that what we're entitled to or not entitled to. So to summarize, it's very simple to send a confirmation of receipt, but the consequences of you not getting one are stressful and worse.
Our last round of...
oui ou non. Merci, Madame Normandin.
Can I just get an answer, yes or no? Thank you, Ms. Normandin.
Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Guthrie and just ask her to finish her last thought when she was cut off in the previous question to her. Sorry, are we having technical difficulties, Madam Chair?
Madam Guthrie, you are on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please? We can't hear her. You are, Madam Guthrie, you are on mute. If you can please unmute yourself. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm just having issues that we were trying to sort out.
Okay, Madam Chair, I hope that I could have my time restart.
Yes, we will have it like.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank
you. Please
you.
proceed.
Madam Guthrie, if.
Sorry, what was the question?
I'm just trying to give you some time to finish your last thought because you were cut off in the last question. We're talking about caregivers.
Oh, yes, sorry. I was talking about the fact that there have been a number of caregivers that have been impacted by the COVID-19 restrictions, and a number of them are without status, whether they're waiting for their work permits under the interim program or under the home pilot program. I actually do not know many caregivers who have received work permits under the home child care program. And we were told back in the end of October, beginning of November, that the program was closed. So it was interesting that a few days before we were told that, the minister said they have increased the number of immigrants that they're accepting, but a few days later, the caregiver program was closed to new applicants. And this is an important program, not just for immigrants, but also for women who are working in Canada, who have to work full time in Canada.
So what would you recommend for the government to do in 20 seconds?
We would like the government to adopt some of the old caregiver program requirements. The language program is an issue. The work permit that is not issued. The bridging open work permit is not a bridging open work permit when applicants have to wait a year for their work permits to be processed. We'd like the government to maybe put more resources. The processing times have gone up again. Applicants have been waiting for over a year for their work permits and have not been able to work. It will be good to put more resources and just issue open work permits to long-term caregivers who have been here for years.
Your time is up, Madam Kwan. So with this, the round of questioning comes to an end. On behalf of all the committee members, I want to thank all the witnesses for appearing before the committee and providing important testimonies as we continue our study on the impact of COVID-19 on immigration system. Sorry for the technological issues. We will keep on working and making sure that there are no issues. With this, the meeting is adjourned.